As you know, these are great events that we get a chance to learn a little bit more about the kind of local culture here and the people that help make really creative environments for us to enjoy, whether privately or for the public realm. We're going to start off tonight with Amy BARTELL. She is a principal and also a leader in the residential studio for StudioOutside. Amy is responsible for a combination of high-end residential projects at all scales. Her experience in projects of all sizes include many years of residential design that has put her in a unique position to usher projects along from design through construction. One of the things you'll kind of notice with all three of these speakers, they really like to get their hands dirty and really engage with the work. Amy's presence on site answers questions for clients, contractors as part of StudioOutside's commitment to design excellence. I know she's not going to talk about plants tonight, but I know plant selection to furniture is something that she engages with and involved to ensure that the best beginnings and future for each garden. Her recent project, the Rick Circle Residence, was highlighted last year as one of our modern Dallas projects, and also highlighted in issue 56. We're pretty excited to have her kind of talk a little bit about her inspirations. Next, we have David Droese. Actually, David and I have a passion for a lot of the same things, so we've been having a great conversation tonight. But he, 25 years ago started a partnership with Lance Raney, who's sitting here in the crowd, and has led a team with their namesake firm to provide this kind of full-service architecture and interior design studio, specialized in commercial, hospitality, and retail projects around the country. Focused on an individualized approach to each client's relationship, the firm has become known for developing creative, innovative design concepts while addressing intricate needs of each project. He's also a great supporter of the artists and artisans, and I'm sure you'll hear a little bit more about that. And he also, their roster of prestigious projects include 4510, the warehouse for Howard Wachowski, the Conservancy, Chase, I probably said that wrong, and CFDA designer and award winner Billy Reed. The DR team, to shorten that up, has evolved into a creative force in architecture and interior design realm. The firm has been featured in a number of publications, including Texas Architect, New York Magazine, WWD, VM and SD, DNR, Open, the world's best new fashion stores, D Magazine, and numerous shelter publications. The West Dallas Chamber of Commerce presented Droese Raney with a Visionary Developer Award. So I'll have to learn more about that later. He resides in the Dallas Arts District, and we understand that the culture there at night is always quite interesting with his wife Suzanne. So we're looking forward to hearing more from David here. And then our third speaker will be Jean Liu. Jean Liu is a founder of Jean Liu Design. I know we have the kind of little bio, but I wanted to kind of point out something that I kind of started reading a lot of articles about her and found out that she has this really and a kind of great quality. As I recalled, what they said is, I'm always being rebellious. This is in House Beautiful magazine in a 2018 article. I kind of get a sense of that, so I have a feeling we're going to get a little bit of that tonight. Well, she flouts rules, but her path to creativity actually wasn't a straight path, and so hopefully we learn a little bit about that. I know she really started out, trying to avoid being a lawyer, and then she earned a degree from Georgetown, and then eventually went to Harvard to study theology. So I'm really curious to see how that stuff started to influence some of the inspirations she had tonight. But I would say, she has committed to a small, I think, creative team, just like the rest of our speakers tonight. And so we're looking forward to hearing from all three of them, and then we'll have a little bit of Q&A with ourselves. And then, of course, we'll look forward to having some questions from the audience. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Amy to inspire us.
I'm going to try to be serious. I feel like this is so personal that you're going to learn all these things about me that it might be way too much. But this is sort of the place where I grew up. It mostly summers and weekends, but it wasn't very far from our house in town. But we had a great gift from our parents of growing up here, and this is still in our family. So as a kid, you know, in the 60s, my parents were having a really good time, and we were out just doing, you know, whatever we wanted to do. And but we had no idea that we could have had some fun too. To us, having fun was just being outside, and that's all we ever did. And so, you know, this is still, you know, probably this is probably my most important place on the earth. But this is also the same place, and so when we left to our own devices all day, we were given a leaf rake, and so we spent all of our time raking out houses in pine straw. And so our dad would bring home, my dad at a hardware store, and he would bring home cardboard boxes that would then become furniture or whatever we needed to do. But it wasn't just a couple of times. We spent weeks doing this for years. And so it wasn't maintenance, and it wasn't gardening, and it was just making floor plans. That's going to come up again. The other thing we did was we collected things, and these were, you know, everything was out in the woods. These are still very important things to me. I'm still in the habit of collecting, you know, bur oak acorns, and I still love going there when the dogwood are blooming. But all these things, you know, at that time I thought were beautiful, and you'll see later on where these things came up again in my life again and again, and still. This is a painting by an artist named Merrill Kaysen, and I still have this painting in my possession, and it is very important to me. Merrill Kaysen was a very gifted artist. He could do a collage like this. He could do paintings. He did woodcuts. He did pen and ink drawings. And this is how he paid for ballet lessons at my mom. My mom had a ballet school, and so this is how he bartered for lessons. And so it's a great piece, and I look at it every day. These are also things that he did. And so as a kid, seeing that an artist could draw all these things and paint and do scenery, you know, he did this amazing modern scenery for ballet productions. I mean, it was just a great exposure, but these are also works by him that I still have, because even as a young kid, I thought they were beautiful, and I just hung on to them. Then the other thing that happened while my parents were out having a good time was my parents had a lot of books and art, and, you know, we were exposed to everything when we were little. And this is a painting by Mondrian. And so this book, I still have this book. It still inspires me. But just looking through this book, I can't admit that I read it when I was a teenager or anything, but the fact that you could go from that to this fascinated me. And these have always been some of my favorite compositions and paintings, and it's fascinating to me that it's just some of my favorite art. And you'll see this come up again too. So then went to college, you know, growing up in East Texas, all covered with trees and woods, and then all of a sudden, you know, out in just huge sky and land, and driving out to Lubbock just had a huge impact on me all the time, because, you know, you saw the earth go up on this cap rock, so you could see where the earth had really shifted. It was great. And I started in art, of course, but you know, learning all these compositions and all this geometry and art and graphics, and graphic design became just a huge passion for a while. I got totally into font design. You know, it still interests me that one letter can be done 800 ways or more. I mean, it's just in size and drawing, you know, it was just, I just loved it. I still am very interested in graphic design. And then, you know, bought a book, and this is a book that, I have a bad book habit, but this is a book that my dad and I still share back and forth, and so I have possession of it at the moment, but he'll ask me, I'm sure, in a few months, that he needs it back, and so we just trade it back and forth. Same book. So this interests me because it's like the Mondrian paintings. You know, all of the composition in Japanese art, this book is filled with all sorts of details. But I think one of the things that I get out of it now is that it's beauty and utilitarian things. It's not decoration. Now, there might be a beautiful finish on something and a scrolling or design, but it's not decoration for decoration's sake. Then I went to Japan, and you know, it was life-changing. It was you know, it was really everything that I thought it would be, but what it did is it spoke to me about all the things that I'd already collected, rocks, you know, stones, you know, it was fascinating. Raked gravel. Looked just like raked sand. Yes, we can do that. But, so all the detail, and I have thousands of pavement pictures. Thousands, you know, because, you know, I'm always looking down, but I'm supposed to talk to this. But there it is again, the composition of space. So spaces on walls and on the floor, and I know this is a different kind of math, but it still reminds me of those paintings that fascinated me a long time ago. Then I went to England. And England was, you know, lovely and amazing, and all of the ancient history, but all of these are things that are timeless because of their simplicity. A timeless walk in verdant path, you know, I mean, it's all the same. It has been since, you know, a long time ago. Then I went to Italy. Then, you know, everything sort of came together again, and got to live here for a week and look at all this Palladian architecture. It was a real treat. The organization of spaces, still the same thing. Did get to experience this, and it was rainy when I was there, and it, you know, again, it was that geometry in use. Will never, you know, you can't improve on it. So, in some of the work that we do, you know, the most fun part is letting the building talk to you, or the space. We are never given an empty space. We're never given a blank spot. So our job really is to respond. And so this is a Scott Lyons house that some of you may know, but the Scott Lyons houses are so inside outside that it's a pleasure and an honor to work on them. And this curve, you know, was already existing you know, between the two structures, and so the curves sort of put themselves together. So that simple composition of line and form in scale with the house is just, you know, kind of, it's still the same painting to me. A lot of the work we do is remodel work. This is, again, a very simple garden scheme, but it is laid out in large rectangles that are connected by gravel pathways and gravel areas. in San Antonio, where everything grows quickly overnight. This is what I do most of the time, is doing this, but it has the same roots. This feels like Japan to me sometimes, playing in the dirt, finding that mix between conquered and unconquered. A lot of the work we do is recovery of sites that have had a lot of disturbance during building. This is a Scott Lyons house too that was a pleasure to work on. Very much a team effort in the design, and they're just timeless. And I think that's it. David.
Thank you guys for coming. I was a little intimidated. Rumor has it that Max did this and showed pictures of clouds. I don't know if that's true or not. I got a little nervous when I heard that. I took a little different approach to this. Instead of talking directly about architecture, I kind of went through my iPhone and decided to reference photographs, and I'll be talking about people that are inspirational to me and our practice, Droese Raney. So if you're part of our network, don't be too afraid. There may be some photos of you in here. Yeah, so this will tie into the conversation. I'm not promoting our book, I promise. A couple of years ago, we decided that it was time to kind of tell our story. We're sort of notorious for not really talking about ourselves and just working and not really getting out there too much. So, and this, talking about people in our work that we meet and artists that we get to deal with, fabricators, I think that's the part of what I find very inspirational and, definitely pulls us through the day-to-day. And, we all have ruts and things that we have to conquer, in day-to-day projects. And so anyways, I'll keep going. One of these things that sort of is kind of a happy spot for us is us planting our roots in West Dallas, and this is our office over down the hill from the Belmont, as we like to say. These people are definitely my inspiration. We're only missing 2 people in here that came after this photo was taken, but these people inspire me every day and are the reason that we all get to do what we get to do. So love all of them like family. So and this kind of starts the gist of kind of how where my conversation is. When we put this book together, we were talking about 4 or 5 people that really had an inspiration on our practice in a studio and kind of shifted the focus and direction of our office. And working with Howard Wachowski was one of those people, and his warehouse, which incidentally started as just a warehouse to store his collection, and then turned out to be an exhibition space, but allowed us to, after that project was over, I normally don't admit this, but helping him renovate his Richard Meyer house, and we get to work on, at least once or twice a year doing new exhibitions. We get to work with artists to do projects that if they are from overseas and don't know the United States, Howard brings us in, and we take on really projects that architects probably shouldn't take on a lot of. And this is a great example of one of those. So Sekine Nobuo was in the 60s and 70s was a very famous post-war Japanese contemporary artist that really wasn't talked about due to international things after the war. And Howard decided that with Blum and Poe in LA that they were going to revive this new appreciation for these artists. And he wanted to do, with this particular sculpture, was called Phase of Nothingness. And his big thing was that he had to find a granite boulder from Texas, which, you know, it is probably not an easy thing. So this was in Marble Falls. And we had him flying from Japan, and we had to get a crane in this old creek bed, and we had translators, and anyways, it's one of the most fun that we've had. This is after we actually created the sculpture, put it in Howard's front yard, and then we disassembled it, shipped it to LA, and so all the dialogue of all of that is very interesting. I'll probably spend most of the time talking about this man on the right. So it's been probably eight to 10 years. We had the opportunity to meet Jose Noé Suro in Guadalajara on a trip that we met working on 4510 downtown. He, it's kind of shaped our practice after that going forward, in that we started to think about our studio being maybe more than just architects and interior designers, and thinking more about working with artists. We have a very good friend of Lance's family, a young artist that graduated from Booker T. After meeting Jose and becoming aware of his nurturing and basically creating relationships with artists and architects through ceramics, and he will say no to, nothing. He will do any kind of a project. Our project on the front end was very small, but ceramic tile is his business, but it'll be anything from small artists all the way to very well-known artists that he will work with. So we decided to have Wee Wen, this young artist, be a studio in residence in our warehouse. And as we were working with him, we decided to get him involved in murals. He was painting. We had an art show for him in the studio. Lance and I talking to Jose. He's kind of become a brother to us. This was a mural that we do in Deep Ellum, and it's kind of become a social media background for a lot of people. And then eventually it turned into the cover of the book, which is why I had the book in there. And for us, it was, it meant a lot for us to sort of go from having him, commission him to do this mural to be in our studio painting. We had Howard came over and brought all of his gallery friends, and then we actually got a show for at Aaron Cluley's gallery, and then we started working with him on murals. This is a mural that we did for a building that we co-owned in West Dallas, and then there's laying out the tiles, and essentially the beauty of this is that nobody told him no ever, throughout the entire project. And it was just do what you want, and Jose made all of it happen, as he does with a lot of artists. Another person that is a huge inspiration to us, he is Matthew Gilley, who works in our studio. Is really a wonderful ceramicist, and so we're working on some new projects with Jose in Guadalajara. This is Matt actually showing people, probably some of the most accomplished ceramicists in Mexico, his technique, which was, I absolutely love that. And they were very interested, as you can tell. And then another one of our family members, Frederick Broden, who's in the crowd tonight. Right after we purchased the warehouse next to us, Frederick came to us and said, "Hey, I wouldn't mind doing a show in your warehouse. What do you think about that?" And we were like, "Let's do it." It was literally 2 weeks before COVID. So we cleared it out and had, this was early in the evening, but we had 300 of our closest friends in there. I mean, literally in the worst time that you could possibly have a gallery show. It's one of Frederick's shots, one of my favorites, supermodels in the office. And then these are some other artists and fabricators. That's actually Jose's son, Marcelo, in a project that he's working on currently for the Venice Biennale. And then Sarah Crowner, another great artist that we've done some work with. This is in one of our projects. It's a water feature. And then there's a couple of personal photographs. Just purchased some land in Marfa, so we've been spending some time out there trying to figure out what's next there. Lance was the inspiration there. His son lives there. Had to throw this in. This is a good friend of ours, Joey Benton, who is a designer, literally a Renaissance man, and Lance introduced me to him. Very inspirational. These are chairs that he's fabricating out of reclaimed conduit, electrical conduit. And yeah, so every time we go, and then there's some other shots that I'll show you that he's actually working on. He's one of the authorities on Adobe renovation, and so he's currently working on projects at Fort Davis. He's about to help us. There's Lance and I after we bought the warehouse. Yeah, sometimes you do silly things. These are we're definitely a family. These are some fun shots. We try to be there for each other as much as we can. We do crawfish boils, we dress up, we do fun things. But very inspirational shots for me. I had to put this in there. Sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. This is actually for Stephen, but me riding a motorcycle going too fast. And then I thought I'd share a couple of current projects that we have on the boards that we're very passionate about. And I won't go into too much detail, but I think everybody knows this lovely structure. And we're kind of in the process of trying to bring it back to life. Another project that we got involved with Lance and his connection to Gennady through Mud Lab, his son's firm in Marfa, was the redo of Donald Judd's barbecue set up there at the Gennady facility, which was documented, redone, and rebuilt. We were actually part of funding it, and then they cooked a dinner on it and fed for the Gennady open house for the entire crew inside the building there. And then right now, Lance and his team, Kale, are working on the redo of Building 21 at Gennady, which will be its the first conditioned space and lit space in the assembly of buildings out there. So it's kind of the next step for them, and very exciting project for us. And then the last one is just kind of a project that will be kind of ongoing, but also Joey Benton's involved in, but a project in New Mexico, west of Roswell. It's a 150,000 acre ranch, the Diamond A, and it has buildings all the way back to the late 1800s. This is a 1920s schoolhouse that was for the ranch hands, children, and sort of just reworking and rehabilitating and working with a crew to one by one bring these buildings back. And so yeah, so that's I'm sure I skipped some things, but I think that's it.
You're a little taller than me, David. Let's see, you got this? All right. Thank you. That was actually going to be pretty hard to follow. And Stephen, you are correct. I think I am always being a little rebellious, maybe little r instead of big R. I was always not wanting to be an attorney, even though that's exactly what everyone in my family pegged me for. And so instead of becoming one, I just married one. So. I think before I start in the slides, I will give you a little bit of background since Stephen alluded to it. I studied at Georgetown in the School of Foreign Service. While I was there, I was really fascinated with how culture affected our policy and international politics. And then more specifically, theology became the way that I saw culture and how it affected policy. So that is, in a very abridged way, how I ended up at Harvard, frittering away 2 years. Really doing some deep thinking and not studying or thinking about interior design at all. But I tell you that because it does come into play here. Before I went to school and all during my childhood, I was perpetually fascinated with fashion. As somebody who's not 6 feet tall or model-esque, these were always just fantasy to me. And as a young adult, I had the chance to actually become a visitor and attendee to couture fashion shows, anything from Chanel to Christian Lacroix, and most recently Dolce & Gabbana. These shows blew my mind. The amount of work that goes into every single one of these shows, every single one of these gowns, all of this embroidery, the detail, it really continually feeds me in terms of how I try to put forth the best design for every single project. This here is showing all of this embroidery detail. I read somewhere that, and I have been told by some of the couture houses, on average, a gown can take up to 150 hours. These are images from the Dolce & Gabbana show, again, showing this embroidered detail that I'm obsessed with. But the middle two are pictures of filigree jewelry. It was told to me by the director of the haute couture here that this filigree jewelry technique is actually a dying one. Stefano asked to incorporate it into one of his shows. They went to go look for the people who knew how to do it, and they discovered that it was only being done by very old women who had failing eyesight. It was also very expensive, and they wanted to support them somehow. And so they actually came back and decided to incorporate it into their ready-to-wear line so that they could keep these women busy in the hopes that this dying craft would actually get passed on to another generation. And this is slides again from, or images I would say, also from my iPhone, from my time spent there. And it's showing some more jewelry, just this woman who sits here and for hours just, I watched her fix this one gown. And then the intricate work up here on this sleeve detail. It drives me to think about how we can work with our fabricators and our vendors and how we can support them beyond just making a living, but how we celebrate the path that they have chosen. One of the things, again, I've talked about the embroidery, but that's really what stuck with me. And so this here, this clutch, is actually from one of Christian Lacroix's last show that I was lucky enough to get. The embroidery here has stayed with me for years and years and years, and it has come back to play in a different fashion, which I'll show you soon. This was a bag on the left that I found, I believe, at Zara, and I was really fascinated by the actual embroidery patterns that we used as inspiration as well. So these are images of a project that I was able to do during COVID, and this is the new location of Sasetta, which used to be down in the Dallas Design District, and it moved back into the Jewel Hotel a few years ago. So This image here showed on my, I guess, right, is an abstracted landscape painting of Tuscany that we drew and we recolored in our studio. The two embroidered images were samples that I had received from de Gournay, who I decided to partner with to make this wall covering. And we went round and round, round and round. You can see the far lower left image shows every single colorway we chose. And then we wanted the experience to also be down to the plates. So we worked with Il Buco, who I don't know if you guys have been to or heard of in New York. They're a rustic Italian restaurant that's a staple for New Yorkers. They were willing to work with us, and they made all of the plates in the colors that we asked. We even had glassware, which I unfortunately don't have a picture of, and they work with a woman. She's also quite aged. She goes around her village and she collects recycled glass, and she collects enough of it till she can turn her kiln on only twice a year to fire all of the glasses that we ended up purchasing for Sasetta. So this is, these are images of the finished restaurant. And Sasetta was based on an Italian theme, and so I can't talk to you guys about inspiration without having some travel photos. So I'll make this travel portion a little faster. Yes, I, like many of you guys, are just awed by the history, but I really view travel through the lens of almost being an anthropologist, trying to understand how people before us lived in these same spaces, how they live today, how the work that I do can inform, you know, what's to come, future generations, and how they will live. So these are mainly pictures of my recent trip to Rome, and I think I spent the whole time snapping photos, and so pardon me if I can't actually tell you where all of these are from. The thing about Italy is you can go so many times, and you still just don't get to see enough. I think what I took away from this last trip was just how effortlessly and how ingrained it was in these people and their society to just take all of the most simple, the ordinary things and actually elevate them somehow through design. This middle photo is the door handle somewhere, but look at how intricate the carving is. I was with my nephew and we were crossing the street. I don't even know where we were, but then here's this woman on the left, and I went, wait, all these people get to walk by here every day and see this? It's just, it really changed the way I view our work. And then the image here on the right is one of the many painted ceilings I saw. And I think this always reminds me that as a designer, we need to be paying attention and looking up. What's the fifth wall? So that to me was about what that slide was about. The majority of these images here were from a day trip to Pompeii. I don't know if you guys have been there. I'd never seen Pompeii, and I actually am happy to say that they have started excavating again. This is a recent project for Rome, and Italy. But from an anthropological point of view, these images are quite interesting for me because they give us some insight into how the people of Pompeii used to live. This actually was told to me by my tour guide as proof that fast casual existed long before we did. These cylinders here they're counters, and that they used to be filled with olives and whatever you would get to go before you would take it home or go on to work. And that's what the archaeologists have decided this was. The image in the middle on the bottom is a paved road, but inside, sprinkled within it, are little white marble chunks. And this was their way of trying to light the road after the sun went down. And then in no particular order, the image on the lower left is just another door handle. And being Chinese and it being the year of the snake, I had to take a picture of these intertwined serpents. The reason why Italy continues to fascinate me is also because of this long relationship I've had with my New York apartment, which is on the Upper East Side. It was a Stanford White building that was erected turn of the century. Mr. Pulitzer, whose home it was pretty elderly as well. He was going blind, but he had worked with Stanford White and agreed to develop and build this family home that was inspired by Venetian palazzos here on the left. And this is the building today, and the image at the top is the building shortly after, maybe 2 decades after it was built. When COVID was over, I decided that I was going to actually redo this apartment. It had been done in the, 20 years prior. So it was time to give this space a little bit of a facelift. And going back to the fashion piece, I'm still obsessed with embroidery. So I decided to work again with de Gournay, this time using a different pattern and doing a different kind of French knot detail. And we created this wall. It's not even a wallpaper because it's fabric, and we did all of the panels of the apartment in this pattern. This is the finished apartment, and the reason why I find this useful to show in the context of travel is because just like the modern day Romans living and walking by all of these ancient sites, this is my way of living and spending time in a building that was once upon a time a family home. Today it is, it's been carved up into 13 apartments. It is probably not family friendly. This is just one room, but this one room has 16 feet tall ceilings, so it doesn't feel like a typical small New York closet. And my love for Italy can be found through several things that I chose to keep or add. There's Cascina, a dining table, there's a Flos light, there's Fornasetti patterns in one of the chairs over here. All of it, all of the mantles and all of the plasterwork was restored as part of this recent updating. Okay, so third inspiration. Anyone in the audience ever been to Sugarfish? Raise a hand. Okay. So I'm Chinese, so obviously I'm obsessed with food, right? And so every time I'm in LA or I'm in New York, I make it a point to stop at Sugarfish. Sugarfish is amazing to me because no matter where I am or what day it is, if I go for lunch or dinner, it's so consistent and reliable. And I ask the people that I'm there with, how can this be? How is it that they can deliver the same quality meal, the same size cut of fish, the same temperature of rice every single time? And this really speaks to Chef Nozawa's philosophy behind Sugarfish, speaks to the way that I hope and want to be running a practice today. He is fanatical about perfection. He has so much confidence, even everything on the menu that you can order from starts or includes the words, "Trust me." I wish I had the confidence to say that to some of my clients. Just trust me. The relationship that Chef Nozawa has created is really because he has fostered all of these relationships since the 70s or so I've read. He is the only person who shows up at the fish market consistently at 4 a.m. And on their website, they say he is the only one who actually gets in 15 minutes early. And it's based off of his work ethic, the way that he treats his people, and his dedication that is evident to everyone that he works with. One of the things that we find in battle today is that projects take longer, they cost a lot more. It's challenging for us as an interior design studio to talk to our clients about the delays and the cost overruns. We work with clients who have big budgets. They really like and appreciate one-of-a-kind things, but I think the conversation that we have with them is, hey guys, we're working with artists. its creativity is not something that just happens within the 6 to 8 week lead time. So we are trying to be better about celebrating our artists, defending them, trying to defend the creative process, and talking to our clients about what that looks like before they say, yes, I want that custom tile wall, or yes, I want that custom piece of furniture. So this slide is about a vendor that we really enjoy working with. They took one bench, it was a simple bench, it was made overseas, but every couple of weeks they would send us photos showing the process that they had made. And I also, from my artists, fabricators, vendors, don't always get this kind of communication. And so this made our lives a lot easier to explain to a client why something was taking 20 weeks. That's the bench in this one project. And I show it because most every single thing in these very few images are custom. Every single thing here took 20 weeks or more. It was really a perfect union between a client who was patient enough to wait and artists who were talented enough to work with us in giving her exactly what she wanted. And so I guess one of the things that I want to tell anybody who's listening is this takes time. It's actually not going to get any shorter. I think good design is going to take even more time going forward. So, let's see. Then this is the last source of inspiration. I would say to you guys that this is probably the most recent of inspirations. My mother-in-law passed recently, and she grew up in Kansas in a very small town called Coates. I would actually call it deserted. I went back with my sister-in-law to go sprinkle her ashes, but these are pictures of her childhood home. This home has been there since 1923, and the family has decided to keep it in this state. It's almost like a shrine to the previous generation. And I have added this quotation: remembrance of things past is not necessarily the remembrance of things as they are. So only this last year did I get to see it, even though this had been our home for decades. On the other side of my family is my father-in-law. He was a commercial artist, and as we started clearing out the house, some of these things were books and yearbooks that almost got thrown out, but I went through them all, and that's a piece of sheet music. I'm fascinated by the color palette and the typography. Being a commercial artist, he also had this book. The word quaint here is illustrated several different ways, and I'm not really sure where that's going to take me in this journey of inspiration to design, but it's something I find myself thinking about a lot and looking at. That is my father-in-law from way back when and my mother-in-law from way back when. And that's my father-in-law's yearbook. I think it was 1924. And so that embossing technique, the same color palette, underneath that yearbook is actually a handwritten note from his younger brother, to my father-in-law before he left for the Army. And these are all the Hanson children. So this idea of time past is really spending a lot of time in my brain. I'm not really sure where it's going to take me. The project that I would tie most back to this idea of nostalgia is this Drakestone lobby that we redid fairly recently. This project is interesting because the Drakestone is the Once Upon a Time Republic Bank building. It was built in 1926, I want to say, and it was heavily redone multiple years ago. I don't know exactly which date, but when it was updated, it took on a very modern, avant-garde type of interior. It was really white, and I think that it was really interesting, but few years into it, my client came to me and said, can we take it back a little more? Can it look a little more like the Beekman Hotel or the Greenwich Hotel in New York? So we worked together, and we really, it was a cosmetic change. We painted all the walls, we incorporated a sepia-toned wall covering to give it a sense of age. We used antique rugs. The furniture is still either mid-century-ish or fairly modern, so that it wasn't an exact copy of a past time. Changed out some of the fixtures, created more dining, seating areas so that the residents would try to spend more time in the lobby. Gave the space a little more life by incorporating something as small as a floral arrangement. And then just, again, tried to be very conscientious about how we touched or changed the space, but gave it definitely a heavier feel by taking the whole space from white to this deep, dark forest green. Okay, apparently that's my last slide. Thank you.
So originally, we were going to have one or two and have them kind of go through it. Since they answered a lot of my questions already, I'm going to actually, I have 3 different questions, one for each of you. And I was going to say, if you're inspired by their response and you want a response, that'd be great, but you only get like 30 seconds. So let's start off with Jean. Okay, I'm changing the question because you already answered the question I had for you earlier. So what's this about this butt test for your studio that you guys, I've heard there's this kind of notorious thing that, everybody's worried about, the so-called butt test. Can you explain?
The butt test I can't take credit for, and I'll try to speak quickly. The butt test really does belong to Alexa Hampton, who I dubbed the royalty of interior design. She had found a chair that was from the 18th century. She really loved the form and the scale, so she had it reproduced because the 18th century butt was quite a bit smaller than ours today. And so it became a joke in our studio, and now everything that we can goes through the butt tests, meaning please go sit on this piece of furniture you're about to commit to. Make sure it's comfortable, make sure it fits your size and scale as well.
Oh, that's more information. I like that.
Mic up.
Mic up. No, I don't.
Seriously.
So a question for you. What was the best surprise that you ever received?
Well, my brother brought a ticket for me to see Robert O'Keefe one time without telling me. That was pretty nice. I've been thinking about this question, and I don't know any other surprises other than children, give you surprises every day, and I had a great time with my kids. So.
That's good. And a quick answer, too.
30 seconds.
Well, no, that was if anybody wanted to respond, but the spirit of Nate thanks you. So the question I have for you, David, is if you could interview a creative person, past or present, who would that person be and why? 45 seconds.
Wow. Gosh. Yeah, wow. I don't know. I don't know that I have maybe some famous artist, I suppose, Picasso. I mean, or Frank Lloyd Wright. We could really, maybe Frank Lloyd Wright.
So why? Why would you want to interview? Well, Picasso, I mean,
we've all heard the rumors, and you'd have to dig into the. I wouldn't want to ask an architectural question. I'd have to ask
Well, I figured you'd invite him over on that that special night that you guys have and get them.
Yes, yes, yeah, he'd always be welcome.
How much time do we have?
5 to 8.
5 to 8?
Yeah.
Well, since they were so quick at answering 3 of my questions, I have more, but I'd like to open it up for the audience. Is there somebody that has a question that they would ask our creative team up here? Yes?
What's been your most challenging project?
Are you asking each one of them to respond?
In general.
Most challenging. Come on, Amy.
You start.
It's usually the one that you don't think is going to be that. I will speak to one that we're currently working on, that everybody that's working on it is laughing right now. We're doing a jewelry store in North Park, which is probably the most tedious, detailed project in the history of our office. And you wouldn't think that, but it is. And it'll be beautiful. You could go check it out.
Well, sometimes things come in that I think, oh, it's a nothing burger, which, if you don't know what that means, I can't really explain it to you. I think it's self-explanatory. But every nothing burger project becomes the biggest challenge I can think of. There is no small anything.
We are currently working on a project in Boston, and it's just taken way longer than anybody ever thought. It took way longer because apparently Boston did get a very cold winter this year. So all the work that needed to happen outside has not happened in a timely fashion. I'm actually leaving to go and install this project tomorrow morning, and I was told by the contractor yesterday, I just want you to know we don't have a CO. So we might get shut down. I said, okay, great.
Yikes. Another question? In the back.
What are conscious creative practices you do to stay inspired?
Well, I think drawing by hand all the time. It doesn't matter if you're doodling, it doesn't matter if it is, but I think to start any design project or to start any thinking, you have to draw. So it can be a sketch, it can be, you don't have to look at something and draw it, you just create it from maybe something that's there. But I do think just drawing, getting your brain engaged in your eye and your brain and your hand,
If my wife was here, she is not, she would tell you that I have way too many hobbies. So I think that's, for me, that's what keeps me sort of grounded, everything from photography to do some minor metal smithing, just depends. Yeah, so.
Don't forget the motorcycle.
That too, that too.
For me, I really use the time that I spend running to let my mind wander, and I actually have found that it's the time when I have the most creative ideas come easily to me. So if you're in my studio, you probably can judge how creative I am lately by how fit or not I am, or how much I've been running. But I do think there's this meditative thing happening when I'm jogging, I won't even call it running these days, that allows me to just think through the projects and play them out in my mind.
So I have one last question for you, all three of you. What is the best advice that you've been given?
Well, before I moved to Dallas, I lived in California for a long time, and I was contemplating moving and kind of worrying about it, and gnashing teeth and all that, and my good friend just said, go, you don't need anybody's permission. And it's been great.
Out of school, went to work for a big firm here in town, and I always tell people that I spent 3 months, this is no lie, drawing sanitary napkin dispensers on bathroom elevations. That was my job. There's some of you that work there with me or in the crowd. And I would go home at night, and Monday mornings were hard, or Sunday nights were hard, and somebody, and I can't remember who it was like, you have to be able to work and do something that, like when you go to bed on Sunday night or you go to work on Monday morning, that you're really excited to be there. And so, yeah, I didn't last long there.
I think the best piece of advice I've gotten as an adult is be really honest about what you want to be doing, what you're good at, be honest about what you're not good at, and surround yourself with the people who can help you be better at the things you're not good at. And I think that's really helped us as a studio.
So how are we doing on time? Can we do one more question?
Sure, one more.
Okay, so if you could do something that you've never done before, what would you do? David, I know you do everything you want to do, so yeah.
It's true. I would travel more. Yeah.
There's one person in the audience I want to call out. I would like to run one last marathon in Rome. It was a goal I gave myself to run a certain number of races before I turned a certain number age.
I will travel more. I just don't know when or where, but that's on the list. That's probably a big one on the list.
Well, that's great. Well, I want to thank our presenters today and everybody. And so afterwards, if you want to come down and visit and ask your personal questions or some more questions for our speakers today. But thank you for joining us tonight, and
See you soon.
see you soon, hopefully next week, next Thursday.